I love the fact that it's a story of an underdog in an underdog peripheral area of the world. Queens is not Manhattan, and is someone desperate to change his life. Would you comment on all those topics, and why were you interested in the human condition at that level?
I wanted to tell an underdog story in the context of science fiction, the genre of science fiction, because my interest in science fiction is really to check in with how the technological utopias we've been promised have actually trickled down maybe 5 or 10 years after the fact, and do some auditing of the hype. And so I really wanted to follow an everyman type character, a working class character who sees a new opportunity and gets kind of swept up in what's in the film known as the quantum computing boom, and an area that this quantum industry, the gig economy, has now reached its tentacles into. So I was interested in showing how this kind of myth of American rugged individualism is being, exploited, and what a lot of people call the gamification of labor. Sort of labor working is being turned into a game with apps, and in the meantime, the kind of carpet is being pulled out from under people. So the basic social safety net has evaporated, and people feel like they're independent contractors and they can fend for themselves. But that also means they have to fend for basically every social protection that they once were afforded by being full-time employees. So those were kind of some of the social conditions I was interested in exploring. And the best way to do that, I thought, was to latch on to a sort of everyman character, and in this case, Ray Tincelli from Queens, who we follow into this wild, absurd world.
Quantum, for me, symbolizes the big corporation that is like an equivalent, if you want, to Uber or something, that they want to squeeze you to death and they don't want any responsibility. And in a way, it's the future of capitalism, at least in America, because Europe is more humane, I think.
It is, but I would say that, what we saw just happen with this Prop 22 fight in California, the way in which these companies, these American tech companies, are now going to try to export this model of turning every worker into an independent contractor, trying to export that across the world, including Europe, which they've already, been trying for years now. That's coming around the corner more and more. So Europe is not safe.
How important was it for you to be nominated for the Independent Spirit Awards? I won as Best Screenplay. I love those awards at the beach. Well, I don't know what's going to happen this year because they might be virtual, but how important is recognition in general? Also, you tour with your film, you tour several festivals. I don't know, well, virtually, I guess. And how was that?
Yeah, well, it's an important question for us this year, in a year where we were supposed to premiere the film at South by Southwest at a real film festival that was going to take place, and it was really the first film festival that had to cancel because of COVID. And so the journey with LAPSIS, with this film this year, has been entirely virtual. I've never seen the film in a real theater with an audience, and got that crucial feedback that I think every filmmaker craves. And so nonetheless, we've had a wonderful journey, as you mentioned, to many film festivals across the world, and then to culminate in, now getting a recognition from Film Independent for the Independent Spirit Awards. It means a lot, because we're, compared to a lot of the other films, let's say, in the Independent Spirit Awards, we're a very small film and don't have a big production company or studio behind us. So I was supremely honored to be recognized in that category, and it definitely helps us because we're releasing the film next week on February 12th. So the timing is wonderful, and to have it all happen virtually and still manage to get recognized is really a blessing.
Ray, the main character, seems that he doesn't have any responsibility because he's an individual living by himself, but he's responsible for his younger brother and for himself. So, and the connection between them is very special, I think. Between Ray and his youngest brother with the chronic disease, or
yes. Well, I very much drew from my own experience. I have 3 brothers, no sisters. My brother, my half brother in real life, who's 10 years younger than me, is plays the role of Jamie in the film, Ray's younger brother. So uh,
Really? That's
yeah,
your real brother?
that's my
Oh,
brother.
great.
So I drew from real life experience as an older brother, and I cast my younger brother as the younger brother. So it's very close to home.
That's really cool. He was good. Yeah, they both were very good.
Oh, good.
And wait, I want to ask. I love Ken Loach's films, and your film remind me a little of because I love films in which you give voice to people who are never recognized. You know, it's like going on a trip to Ethiopia instead of going to Paris. You want to know other places and not only the glittery, flashy shit.
Yes. That's. I think you're touching on. Well, I should start my answer with a question.
So I nailed it. I nailed it.
You nailed it. But what I want to say is, I feel frustrated often when science fiction films deal with what I would call white collar sci-fi exclusively. So they're principally involved in the glitzy, glamorous world of creating technology or benefiting directly from high tech innovations, or space travel or what have you. But I think there's a whole other genre of sci-fi that's I would call this blue collar sci-fi, which is the less glamorous and glitzy world. It's not the people who are creating the technologies, but I would argue it's the more important world for the more of us who would then see the technology trickle down to our daily lives. So that's my interest for making this film, and for finding these characters and telling their stories.
Okay, last question. Has the pandemic, I think that the pandemic is horrible, everybody knows that, but there's an silver lining in terms of independent films, because I've never seen so many great independent films in my life, because there are no blockbusters that I have to waste my time on, and I think it's a good time for directors, writers, producers like you. Would you comment on that? Look at the nominees for us, Golden Globes. They're all independent films. They're amazing.
Yeah. What we've seen happen during the pandemic, I think, is a lot of studios have decided they spent so much money on their movie that they would never settle to put it on a VOD platform and that have it be out there and available to everyone. They have to have their theatrical run and whatever else, other special events involved.
But I do understand, because they will they invest so much money, right? 200 million, or I don't know.
Of course, no. I financially, I'm sure it's very well calculated. But the result is for smaller filmmakers like us who don't necessarily need that theatrical run. In fact, for many independent films, the financial return doesn't always come from the theatrical run. It comes from licensing deals and from VOD deals now. So, for a film like ours, we saw it was a no doubt decision to go forward in the midst of all this, to make the film virtually available, and it means that we have a less crowded playing field too. So these release weekends that we were trying to plot out and see when we could release our film, there wasn't as much competition as there would be in a normal year. I mean, February in a normal year, you'd have huge movies coming out every weekend. But we're lucky in that, yes, I think the result of this is many independent films have gotten more attention, which is, a strange positive to pull out of all this, but it's true.